Hi everyone, Brenton here from Sheds. Today I'm standing in front of one of our open-fronted C-section C90 sheds. I just wanted to show you around the shed, show you some of the features and the benefits. So come with me as I show you around. Okay, so we're going to start from the ground up. First of all, we're looking at one of the front columns. And we can see here that we have the C-section column welded to a nice thick sturdy base plate. This is a mild steel base plate that has been coated with a grey rust preventative paint to keep it in the best condition for the longest amount of time. We can also see that we have 4 footing bolts here. On this particular shed they are 24mm thick, or that's the old 1-inch bolts. You have the nut on top and on the bottom. Now doing it on the footing bolts, first of all, is a feature because it gives you a great, strong, rigid connection from your column through to the concrete. It is the benefit because it is a much easier method to install the sheds rather than having the column going straight into the ground. That is very difficult for the builders to put up. So having the footing bolts, it allows them to cast the bolts into the concrete first. Once the concrete is set, they can come back and get the nuts right. So they put the bottom nut on first, they come through and then get their levels right so they know when they stand the column on the bolts and on the nuts, they can also adjust these nuts to get them finally accurate. While I'm down here, we'll talk about the footings themselves. It's a good idea if you're comparing sheds to talk about the size of the footings that are required. Now, a good size footing is going to do 2 things. First of all, it's going to stop the weight of the shed from wanting to sink into the soil, particularly if you're on sandy soils or ones that are reactive. Second of all, a good size footing is going to stop the shed from wanting to lift out of the ground in an uplift situation. What I mean there is that if a strong gust of wind comes into the shed, the shed acts as a sail, and it's going to want to lift up out of the ground, and that footing has to have enough weight in it to stop that shed from wanting to do that. So 2 things, it's stopping the shed from sinking, and second of all, it's stopping the shed from lifting out of the ground. So definitely compare the size of footings when you're comparing sheds. Okay, this time we're looking inside the shed at the end wall. Now what you can see behind me is 3 end wall columns on this 12-metre span shed. They are here purely to support the wall line and the girts. They are not a load supporting item, which means that they can be removed and relocated if the shed is ever to be extended in the future. Now that also means that our end frames are the same size as the rest of the shed, or bigger. Now that is purely so that it can be extended. So if you're comparing sheds and you think that one day in the future you might need to extend it, that is definitely something you're going to need to keep in mind. Sheds can be extended at any time. Again, we're looking in the shed, and this time we're paying attention to the cross bracing in the shed. You want to ensure that your shed has enough bracing in it that is going to stop the shed from moving around. Now obviously cross braces like this gives the shed a great deal of extra strength because it's transferring stresses that want the shed to move lengthways. It's stopping that, it's transferring that stress from the top there down to the base of the footings, making it a much stronger shed. So you want to ensure that your shed has ample bracing in it. Just giving you a close-up of the material we use as our cross bracing. What we've got here is a 20mm wide galvanised pipe. That has been pressed and punched on both ends. That they meet up with holes that are punched in the frame for easy connections. You want bracing like this because it is much stronger both in compression and tension than your standard 1mm thick strapping. It is definitely much easier to install because, like I say, the hole's already there. Strap bracing, you have to tack screw it in, you have to tension it, go back, retension it again later. It really is a hassle. The cross bracing as pipe braces, fantastic. That's the way you want to go. While we're still talking about braces, this time we're looking straight up at the roof. Now we can also see cross bracing up there. It is the same material, the 20mm wide galvanised pipe, pressed and punched at both ends. And again to meet up with holes that are punched in the frame. Now I want you to pay attention to something here. This is the end bay on the shed. What we can see here, if I scroll it down a little bit, is that it carries from one side of the shed to the other on both sides. So you can see right through, we have braces all the way across. Now, standard open-fronted sheds will have that at both ends of the shed. This particular shed has a 9 metre beam and 2 6 metre beams. Now, as required in our engineering, wherever we have a beam, i.e. taking away a column, we're told that we must have cross bracing in every bay of the roof wherever we have a beam. So let's just have a look across here. There's one bay, cross braces in the next bay, the next bay, the next bay, and we keep going all the way across. Because we have beams all the way across the front of the shed, we also have roof braces all the way across. So what we have there is a huge spider web of bracing, ensuring that your shed is going to go absolutely nowhere. Okay, so now we're looking at the top of one of our standard columns. You can see that the C-section rises up, the truss comes off of it at an angle at the top. Now if I zoom in here, what we're going to look at is the amount of plates that goes into this. The first thing you can see is the plate welded to the end of the truss. This connects both the truss and the column, giving it a good rigid place for the bolts to connect through. What you can also see there is a horizontal plate at the top and the bottom of where the truss comes in. That helps transfer the stresses of the shed from the truss, down the column, into the braces and down to the footings, giving it a good strong connection. So what we can see there is the 2 horizontal plates. What you can't see there is there's a second plate going vertically. It is almost identical to the one on the end of the truss. So you're actually looking at 3 bolts going through 2 plates and the column. So there is absolutely no chance of that truss or the column going anywhere. Okay, so again we're looking down at one of the base plates on the columns. This time what I wanted to show you is the wall girts. What we can see here is a nice piece of Z section. This is a Z110 to suit 3 metre bays. We're looking at the connection here. Now people have different preferences as to what's better, C-section girts or Z-section girts, or purlins. Now we prefer the Z-sections as they can be overlapped. So as you can see here, there's a good amount of overlap. Goes behind the column and overlaps still through to the other side. When these purlins are overlapped by a particular length, they are structurally considered as one continuous length when all bolted up. Now with C-section, you can't overlap it. It simply butt joins to itself. You can't overlap it without having to cut it open and causing more work, more stress. Z sections are designed to overlap. They have a wider side and a skinnier side, so they can do that. So that is why we prefer the Z sections. They are easier to install, they overlap, creating a stronger connection. We're looking at the end wall again now. Now what we can see here is we're looking at flashings. Grant sheds will provide all the flashings needed for you, including even this one in the open fronted sheds. What we can see here is that there would be a wall girt coming out here. Now if we didn't have this flashing on the end of it, you would be just left with an open hole between the columns, the purlins and the wall line. It would simply look awful. So we're going to make sure to provide all the flashings for you, including ones like this, just to neaten it up. Grant sheds also order all of their flashings to come in country packaging. They come in one bundle, which is all packaged up, bubble wrap and plastic wrapping around it to ensure that it comes in a good condition. If goods are arrived on site and they are damaged, please report them to us. We will get new ones out to you. Rainwater is a precious thing out in the farm, so we provide all of our sheds with gutters, pops and 90mm PVC downpipe. That way you can redirect all of the stormwater into the precious tanks ready for use in the future. Okay, so there's a brief look around one of our C-section C90 sheds. Showed you some of the features and the benefits as to why you should be choosing a Grant shed. Really because they are the best shed on the market, easiest to construct, as testified by thousands of customers before. Check out our Grant sheds now. Give us a call on 1800 088 528.